Okay, let's look at settings, characters, and theme. Before you plan any story, what you're supposed to do is you need to decide on the three main ingredients, and they are settings, characters, and theme. So these three things you've got to decide on just the way you cook something, and you have to have the ingredients for it, and you need to make the item of food in the same way. When you're writing fiction, you need to have these three ingredients. Now, setting is when you've basically got a place and where the story is taking place. So you need to help your readers to imagine in their minds the setting, and this creates an atmosphere and it affects the reader, and the reader can feel how it's supposed to affect. Now, think about some of the stories you have read. Think about some of the stories you've read. They might have been at school, they might be at home. Now, when and where they are set, think about that. Think about the stories you've read and think about where they're set, and how do you know where they're set. Look at short stories, look at where the settings are. Have a good draw of some of the settings. Can you imagine the settings? If you read a story or a story you've read, can you draw a picture for the setting? Now, the characters are the people who are involved in the story. They're the main people in the story. They're the main people who are in the story. You need to help the reader create a picture in their mind. So in the mind, with your words, with the choice of words that you're creating, you need to create a picture, and that picture should describe the appearance and their personality. So the appearance is like what they look like, and the readers need an idea of what the characters are looking like. So if say for example, you should be so vivid, so clear in your description that if the reader was asked to draw a picture, they could imagine the story, and that comes with the choice of words you use. Now think about the stories you've read. Who were these characters? What were they like? What was their behaviour? How did they speak? How do you know them? What were they called? And how did they speak? So you need to know how they spoke. Did they speak calmly? Were they aggressive? Were they fun? Were they naughty? Look at some of the short stories and think about some of the characters you've read at school or at home, and try to draw these characters out, and do that so that you can basically get an idea of what you should be doing in your story. So let's think about a theme now. A theme is a message that you're giving, and it's what happens in the story. So it's a message and what happens in the story. Now, some people say there are only a few stories or few themes in the world. Now, you've got to say all writers do borrow ideas from other stories, so it's not wrong for you to take ideas from one story and another story and a third story and develop a story, a theme. Now think about the stories you have read. What happened? Did one of the stories remind you of any others? And list some of the common themes, common messages, common things. Was it evil? Were the main characters, did they do something? Or what was the main theme of the story? Now the setting is in the story. When you introduce the setting at the beginning of a story, remember two things. You've got to remember two things, and these are that you need to tell your reader when and where the story is set. So when and where is the big picture. Now, is your story set in the past? Is it set in the past? Is it set in the future? And you've got to think about whether it's a futuristic story or is it a story set in the past. And you've got to make that clear in your story. Now, the smaller picture is writers tell us more about settings by adding some smaller details. And you need to tell the reader about the season is, and where and when the story takes place. Because is it in the summer? Is it in the spring? Is it at night time? Is it in the morning? And even smaller picture, there's even finer details. Whether it's at supper time, or if it's night time and the moon is out, or if it's the sun, and all these finer details need to be included if you're going to create a picture in the reader's mind. And these pictures are only created if you've really clearly thought about the details, and think about the big picture, think about the smaller picture, and think about the fine detail. And that's what you've got to clear in your mind. You've got to clear in your mind these ideas, and unless you read other people's stories, you won't be able to fluently generate these ideas. So you've got to take ideas from other people's stories and develop and change them into yours. Now, where is your story set? Well, where? You need to involve your readers and help them experience the setting, and that comes from the 5 senses of sight. They need to come from the sound, so the sight from what you look at, what you hear, what you touch, what you smell, what you taste, and you've got to create this vivid imagination, this vivid picture, this vivid clear. Now, a key tip is that if you are doing a short task, if you're asked to describe a setting, put lots of details. If you're asked to describe a setting, put lots of details. And in a long writing task, where the setting is just one of the story ingredients, you need to introduce the setting briefly. So when you, in a long writing task where the setting is just one of the story ingredients, so the setting is only one because it changes, then you need to introduce the setting briefly. You can add more detail. Now remember what the ingredients were. The 3 ingredients are setting, characters and theme, and you need to be clear about this, because the reader should be able to draw a picture in their mind and even on paper. That's how clear it should be.